Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. I hope yours are well. It's been another week of all sorts of shenanigans going on both in Scotland, out with Scotland, and we're going to discuss some of them here and how they appertain to our own nation. But let me get in the gang right away. We'll start with our favourite lawyer. There she is, our Eva. How are you? Where are you today? You're not in your usual location.
No, I'm not at home today, Roddy. I'm looking onto the marvellous, magnificent River Clyde, just up the road from where many famous and not so famous, perhaps infamous, ships have been launched over the years. So yes, I'm in Phoenix.
Good old Glasgow. Can't beat the Clyde. Make me bring a tear to a glass eye. And up there in the city of Discovery, we have Mr. Petrie. How are you, Alan?
Hey Roddy, I'm doing fine. I'm just getting ready for the assembly up at Arbroath tomorrow to mark the Declaration of Arbroath. Everybody's meeting at Dundee Road at the monument at 1 o'clock.
Are you expecting a good crowd?
Hopefully, yeah. The flags for independence and the Yes movement are coming, the Yes convoy. So hopefully it should be a good day.
Great stuff, great stuff. And in there in Edinburgh we have Mr. Quinnan.
Hi Roddy, hi everybody, how you doing?
We're all doing great, you?
Aye, fine.
That's what I like to see. And last but not least, Mr. Boswell. Where are you this week, he asked.
How you doing? Well, you can't see me camouflaged against these curtains. Your curtains match your cushions, Roddy. Almost. So I thought I'd put a shirt on to blend in with the scenery. Yeah, gin capital of Spain. Thoroughly enjoying it. Staking out into an orange tree. No, it's a lemon tree. It's a lemon tree. Very nice.
Yeah. Just down from the pomegranate and the orange tree, yeah. Anyway, yes, nice to have you here and nice to have you on board, Mr. Boswell. Maybe I can keep you in line now. I'll just stamp the floor with my foot if you're doing anything wrong. Anyway, this is the day Alan's talking about. It's the Declaration of Arbroath Day, where every Scotsman, if they can, should be there. Some of our own have thought about going elsewhere, and they're over there, Eva, in New York, of all places, for the Tartan Day. They're all there now. Isn't it amazing? That these people, these SNP leaders, Eva, who as soon as you give them the sniff of an all-expenses paid trip to New York, they'll go there and wave the flag. They don't have a problem marching down in New York, but they say, they don't want to march in Scotland. They're never available for an all-under-one-banner march, which is quite disgusting.
This puts me in mind yet again of the late great Ian Lawson. Remember the challenge of the 90s and the talk then about raising money from the diaspora to assist in Scotland's cause fighting for independence. I would love to see Scottish government ministers over in the US or in fact anywhere in the world contending for independence, making the case, raising support, raising our profile, talking about the desperate, urgent need for self-determination, not least because many of those people around the world are the descendants of ancestors who had to leave Scotland as the result of being unable to find a job or the Highland clearances or innumerable events in Scotland's history. And those descendants are happy to come and visit Scotland, happy to know about us. They love the skirl of the pipes and the Highland Games and the wearing of the tartan. But these are the people that we should be embracing and assisting in our fight for independence, which is far, far more important than getting your photo taken now and again and sticking it on the front page of the National and talking about what a wonderful, creepy wee place Scotland is. The ministers of the Scottish Government should each and every one of them be on the streets on a daily basis, gearing up support for the independence cause, fighting to keep Grangemouth open, talking about nationalising our only oil refinery and harnessing our greatest resource, our people. And you only do that if you have a visible, joined up, united campaign for independence. So John Swinney and Angus Robertson and those hangers-on round about them would do well to look out for the adverts for All Under One Banner and come to the march in Glasgow next month and make the case for Scotland's independence here at home to the people who matter, those who have a vote and those who need to have hope and optimism that the future will be brighter than the past has been.
Absolutely. So that's the 3rd of May, folks, the All Under One Banner march, where true independentistas will be. And we'll certainly be there, and we'll be at the Glasgow Green, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Alan, as I say, there's a lot of, as Eve has alluded to, the First Minister and a lot of hangers-on have gone for the wee jolly. And Anis Sarwar, leader of the third opposition party, who are failing in the polls, which we'll come on to later. What the heck's he doing there? Although the Daily Record are giving him the top billing, not the First Minister.
Well, I mean, I fully support people go around talking Scotland up all around the world, not just in America. But how can you have Anis Sarwar talking Scotland up in New York when all he does in the Scottish Parliament is talk Scotland down? He keeps telling Scotland how we are too weak, how we are too poor, and how we are too stupid, how we cannot run our own affairs. So why is he there if it's not just for a junket? But even the SNP, when they're there, they'll be talking about many, many things, but I'll guarantee you one thing they are not talking about. And that is something that is going to be happening in New York very soon. And that's the United Nations C24 committee meeting. I guarantee not one SNP politician's trying to organise a lobby of that organisation when it meets. That's what the SNP should have been doing in New York. Gathering the people. Even if they just got the 100 people still alive to go outside those committees to lobby on behalf of Scotland. That's going to be beneficial, rather than just sitting there lapping it up with their big meals and drinking bills. Because we'll be paying that bill.
Yeah. The C24, you want to tell the people exactly what that is?
Yeah, the C24 committee is where Liberation has presented our case as a colonised nation. That'll be meeting in New York very soon. I think it may be June, this meeting. And they will be deciding whether Scotland can be put forward as a colonised nation. This would then take the power away from Westminster on deciding whether Scotland can become independent or not. That will then put it back onto the people of Scotland and give us back our sovereignty.
I won't put up the pictures, Phil, but there's Anis Sarwar with the Union flag, saying he's out there to talk up for Scotland. Meanwhile, down at Westminster, you'll notice it more and more, the Labour MPs who are down there supposedly on Westminster business are bringing up devolved manners and throwing softballs to Keir Starmer and the others to attack Scotland at every opportunity. Even though in things like the NHS, for Scotland's NHS is the best, not perfect by any means, but the best performing NHS in the UK, not the ones that are under Labour control, but they're giving them all these things, and he's standing there talking about, I'm here for Scotland. He's not there for Scotland.
No, absolutely not. And it's been always the case. It's been the case for a long, long time now. Since Alex sadly left leadership and then left us, we've been lost, cast adrift. So this is Scotland's First Minister, the New York celebration of Tartan Day parade, which is happening right now. And what we got is, it's Saturday, so John Swinney will spend his day promoting Scotland's rich cultural roots in the US and take to 6th Avenue alongside Grand Marshal and actor Alan Cumming. Dear God, no thank you. Also anticipated to join is Ian Murray, right, Scottish Labour leader Anis Sarwar, and Holyrood Deputy Presiding Officer Annabel Ewing. The day is about Scottish heritage in the US. Now, I think we all can understand why that would be important if it represented Scotland, but it doesn't. The sad thing here is this is continuing the status quo. Instead of fighting for independence, while our economy and people continue to struggle and wages in real terms continue to fall, while costs increase and these clowns are off on a jolly purporting to support Scottish business, it's UK business you're supporting. That's why there's flags and jack. If it's got a jack, put it back. You know, these people should come back home and focus on the needy, the necessary, and serving the people of Scotland. Focus on making it Scottish business and supporting and backing the will and the needs of the Scottish people. It gives you the bulk. Anybody who's seen the Harry Lauder-esque nonsense. They're house jocks, the lot of them. You know, that just makes you sick. They don't work for us, and it's about time we made that a permanent state.
Indeed, I agree with you, Lloyd. What's your thoughts on all these people going to Jolly? The same ones, I say, who will not turn up for an all under one banner, will not turn up for their declaration of Arbroath, will not turn up for the Bannockburn rally, but as soon as they can, they're on that transatlantic flight.
Yes, but here we are. What is this, 24 years after the first Tartan Day? It's never really turned into anything that it was meant to be in the first place. And the main reason for that is just look at the name. What does that mean to the average American? Tartan Day? Why is it not Scotland Week? Why is it not Scotland Week with a Tartan Day? You know, I've got friends who live in New York who are entirely and completely unaware that this is going on. And this is not the first year I've spoken to them. I've said that they know that it's happening because they're Scottish. But if they were ordinary citizens, they would have absolutely no idea until the road gets blocked off for the march. The whole thing exemplifies exactly what's wrong with the nature of what was the Scottish Executive and now the Scottish Government. This whole Tartan Day, Tartan Week nonsense should have been revamped a long time ago. It does serve a very, very useful purpose in as much as it projects the nature of our country. But they should have lobbied for it to be termed Scotland Week with the name Scotland in it, not Tartan. Tartan is not a country. Tartan is not a place. Tartan is a commodity. Scotland is a country. Scotland has people. It's the people from Scotland who went to America and made America what it is. It should be called Scotland Week, and then it would begin to do some of the things it set out to do. But here's another couple of ideas for you. For instance, what Alan said, if this week is the same week that's the anniversary of the Declaration of Arbroath, then I would suggest that anyone with half a brain would have been making use of the fact that the Declaration of Arbroath was one of the basic documents that the Americans created their constitution from, and as a result of that, we should be making a big noise about that. But then again, like so many people in this country, we may know about the Declaration of Arbroath. We may know about what happened in 1320, but it's not taught in our schools. The vast majority of both the civil servants and the politicians on this particular junket will know little or nothing about what it means. But if you want to seal a relationship with a country and a people, there is nothing better you can do, well, apart from giving them a huge big statue and putting it in New York Harbour like the French did. Well, what we should be doing is exemplifying the fact that the basis of their constitution was in a letter that we, the sovereign people of Scotland, sent to the United Nations of its time, which was the Pope in Rome, to declare our sovereignty. Now, the opportunity there to get that out as a story, and in two ways, to inform the people of the United States, and more importantly, inform our own people. Another thing, it does not matter who occupies the White House. It is none of our business. They were put there by the votes of American people. So having attitudes about their president, when their president could have attitudes about us that actually make life a bit more difficult for our people, then the smart thing to do, I would suggest, is to accept the reality of today. Donald Trump, son of a woman from the Isle of Lewis, is currently the president of the United States, and there is nothing we can do about that, irrespective of what we think of him. But what we can do is we can make use of that connection. For anyone who sees Donald Trump sat at his desk in the Oval Office, on his left-hand side, in every single photo opportunity, there is one picture. And it's a picture of his mother from the Isle of Lewis. Now, given what's happened with the tariffs this week, a smart and nimble-footed Scottish government would be arriving in New York with a blue plaque, a copy of the blue plaque that was just put on Donald Trump's mother's house, saying that the mother of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, was born in this house on a particular day, and have that presented to him as a means by which you use soft power to maybe assist our whisky industry in this time of tariffs. These are the things you could do if you actually saw it as an opportunity to progress the movement. But unfortunately, as Eva referred to, as Phil has referred to, and as Alan has referred to, the current Scottish National Party government has no interest in progressing the cause of independence. That is why it's called Tartan Day, and that's why they're there, marching in a street when the vast majority of the people of a city of 16 million know nothing about what's going on.
Yeah, it's quite sad, and as you say, what an opportunity we have to make that work, but it's the old saying, don't take a knife to a gunfight, and that's what we're doing. We've sent knives to a gunfight. But Anas Sarwar and others, what's the thing they work so hard for? The United Kingdom, and what do they want particularly, Eva? This is what they want. What Alistair Union Jack got paid his 30 pieces of silver, his 30 pieces of English silver for betraying his country of birth. He's got to the House of Lords, the epitome for house jocks. Disgusting.
Absolutely disgusting. But by way of a tonic and an antidote, I'm reading this book just now. Lloyd gave it to me. It's Jim Sellers, In Place of Failure. It was written in 2015, and I would suggest that John Swinney and those around him, and actually including Alistair Jack, should read it, because the preface to it is absolutely spot on for today. It's a quote from Marco MacDonald. Out of self-respect comes self-confidence. Out of that comes imagination, innovation, and the whole world opens up to us with independence. What fantastic, inspiring words. And I would suggest that Marco MacDonald and Jim Sellers are renowned as the greats in Scottish independence in our movement because they had self-respect, which is something that most of the Scottish government, and certainly Alistair Jack and those around him, lack. And they lack a great deal, but they lack self-respect if they think that the pinnacle of success is to take a seat in the House of Lords and sell out your own country as the people of your own country starve and freeze and hunger and yearn for better times. You know, we need Margos and Jims like never before. And instead, what do we see? Those who are now jockeying for positions as SNP candidates next year for the Holyrood election are either the young bucks who know very little about the real world, who've come up through the ranks from being the tea boy to the office junior to the junior special advisor and the likes. And these are the people the SNP are going to insult the electorate by putting forward. Those and the others who were rejected earlier last year at the general election are going to be the SNP candidates. And what you see is prolonging devolution, prolonging us being tied to the honours system, tied to the House of Commons, furrowed to the House of Commons, furrowed to the House of Lords, governed by unelected lords, because we don't have a government and we don't have a ruling party that will promote the unity within our movement that is required. This week, there's been a constant debate about, is it going to be SNP 1 and 2, or should we be voting for somebody different on the list? And it is abundantly clear to anybody with half an ounce of common sense that SNP 1 and 2 only serves the unionists. It does not serve the independence cause. So if we want our headlines no longer to be about the Scots who've taken up a seat in the House of Lords and are paid 300 and odd quid a day just for turning up, as our pensioners starve and they warm themselves in the duvet, then we need to have a joined up campaign for Scottish independence where you don't vote for the same party in the constituency and on the list, but where you make both votes count by voting for different independent candidates on the constituency and on the list, and create within the Parliament next year a supermajority for independence, because that, in line with the steps at the UN, and visibility on the streets is what's going to give us the international recognition that a Scotland Day would have given and Tartan Day doesn't.
Absolutely. Just a slight note on that, folks. We keep talking about it, but to let you know that there are conversations going on, and there's already an agreement between a lot of people. We're waiting on 2 or 3 others coming into the party, but there could be a unified, well, certainly all bar one, who we're still waiting to hear from. You can imagine who that is. Alan, did you want to touch your forelock when you heard that Union Jack had got his lordship?
Well, it was no surprise, to be honest with you.
No.
Just more ermine for another vermin. But I mean, this man is now going to the House of Lords, signing a bit of paper and receiving £300 a day. while they're cutting benefits from people who get less than that daily income a week on unemployment or disability. Many of these people are also heavily in debt. Debt not of their own making, but mostly because of mistakes made by government departments within the DWP or Inland Revenue, for especially when it was the working tax credits. Many people were getting thousands of pounds back payments because the Inland Revenue were able to go back 10 years. But if they made a mistake on your benefit that benefited you, you're only allowed to go back 1 year. That's how the rules work. They shaft you right, left, and centre while they reward these people by giving them £300 for doing nothing but signing a bit of paper saying they have attended the House of Lords. This is why we need to get rid of not just the House of Lords, but the Palace of Westminster and bring our Scottish MPs back up to Scotland. And you'll notice that the ones who are in the House of Lords are unionists. There is not one nationalist in the House of Lords. That's why the unionists do not want independence, because they will lose their grafting job. So let's fight 2026. Let's sack every single one of them, and let's use the money that's been wasted on them to help the citizens of Scotland.
No. There has been one SNP ex-leader of the House Commons group of SNP MPs who has been saying he would like to be in the House of Lords. And as you say, only unionists want to go into the House of Lords.
Yep.
Phil, were you touching your forelock for Union Jack?
Obviously not. I mean, this is the minister who bet on the election, right, in line for the peerage. Aren't they all, including Ian Blackford, now a former Conservative cabinet minister who admitted placing 3 bets on the date of the 24 general election, is set to be awarded a seat in the House of Lords. That's what's happening here. This guy with insider information made money on a. This is just what a shyster, what a scamster. Sir Alistair Jack, no, you won't be getting that from me, you clown, who served as Scottish Secretary under Bojo, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. A lesser impressive list of leaders I could not make up myself. These 3 bozos and this Alistair Jack served under them. He's expected to be given a peerage in Sunak's resignation honours list story, right? Now, he's previously said he didn't breach any rules, blah blah blah, but anyway, this is the most senior politician caught up in the row over government insider gambling on the general election. But the thing that gets me here is the SNP are now become the same as the rest of these UK parties, part of the continuation of the status quo. That's why they have to be realigned with independence. You know, remember the raison d'etre for the SNP used to be independence, nothing less. And that requires the removal of the Quislings currently leading it, or the destruction of the party. And that the rest of us need to unite to ensure this happens, because they won't do it themselves. While their snouts are in the gravy train, they will not do it themselves. We might need even more pain before the only gain that matters. Independence, nothing less. As the SNP, they're not even facing the correct direction right now. So don't vote for them. As they stand, remove the current leadership team or destroy the party. For I don't want traitors who can clearly be bought, leading us into a fight with the British establishment for the freedom of our people and our country.
Well said, sir. Well said. Lloyd, how about you? Were you really showing jealousy that you couldn't be a Lord?
Oh, yes. I wake up every morning desperate for my ermine. Honestly, here we go again, the great British merry-go-round. You do the right thing. And look, it's no surprise. Alistair Jack would have got a knighthood. Well, he has. He's got a knighthood already. He's now been ennobled, so he goes into the House of Lords. Now, that was going to happen for Alistair Jack anyway. Yeah. You know, it's the nature of, you know, he's a big landowner. He's a contributor to the Tory party. He's been part of the Tory colonial administration in Scotland for enough years. It's his turn. You know, there's the number of people that I've come across over the years who end up getting, you know, wiping their bum in the red leather simply because they've been around a wee while, and it's a bit like showbiz. It's not who you know, it's what you know, or it's not what you know, it's who you know. And Alistair Jack has always given me the impression that he never really wanted to be in politics, and I think his cavalier attitude over the betting on the 24 election, his various dismissive statements about things that were really, really very important, just gave me the impression of yet another one of these Tory tweed-wearing boys from the Shires, Dumfriesshire, who fill in the gaps, and then they know very well if they do that, then they'll get looked after. Because the one thing, particularly the Tories, Labour were quite good at it for a long time. The one thing that the Tories and the Union always does is it looks after its own. You sign up, you're guaranteed. You're guaranteed a future, you're guaranteed an existence, you're guaranteed a job. Look at Blair Dougal. Blair Dougal from the Labour Party, now a member of the Parliament, and will no doubt be a member of the House of Lords at some point in the future. Margaret Curran, ex-Minister for Social Security, not social inclusion in the Scottish Parliament, now ennobled, and her laddie, who's now the MP for Edinburgh East and Musselburgh, and the well-known Ermine catcher that he is, he'll end up with Ermine as well, because that's the nature of it. The whole of the British state is based on the concept of the Roman principle, which is, we will make you part of our elite, and there are gradations of your elite, from your MBE to your OBE to your CBE to your knighthood to your eventual ennoblement. And the simple fact of the matter is, so long as we have a country who believes in this sort of guff, and we have individuals who are prepared to believe in this sort of guff, we're going nowhere. Mm-hmm. The sooner that anyone and everyone who pops their little head up, particularly in the Scottish Parliament or from the ranks of the Scottish National Party, and makes the suggestion that it would be useful in political terms to be in the House of Lords because that's part of the structure. Again, here we go again. Completely the wrong way round. The way to change things is we become an independent country. That's the answer every single time. If you don't like the House of Lords, don't reform it, reform Scotland. Become an independent country. If you don't like the House of Commons, don't reform it, reform Scotland. Become an independent country. It's the answer to each and every one of the problems. It would also rid us rather rapidly of the incompetence we currently have in the Scottish Government if we became an independent country, because there will be no place for passengers when we're trying to redevelop and rebuild our country for our people. The only people we'll need then is those with the energy, the desire, the commitment to make this a better place for the generations to come.
Hear, hear. On that, the nauseating of the House of Parliament, there's a couple of good bits of news this week, Eva, I'd like you to comment on. And one of them was, for the first time ever down in our fellow Celts in Wales, the 25 to 34-year-olds say yes, 72%, but 51%, of the total population believe that independence is now the way to go. It shocked Eva so much her camera switched off. I don't know what happened there. Come back, all is forgiven. No, she's gone. I could put it to you then, Alan, I'll come back to Eva later. But the other thing I wanted to show you was, well, the British government are giving money to Kiev, 12.9 billion to help them there, and they're giving money to help Israel kill people in Palestine, and we've got all this poverty and everything going on. Here's what a good soul did. A good Welshman, Michael Sheen. He bought 1.3 million of his neighbours in Wales's debt and wrote it off. He paid something like 10 pence in the pound, and he wrote off that debt. Now that's what you want to be seeing. Maybe when the banks crashed, if they'd taken the money and written off everyone's mortgage instead of fixing the balance sheets for the banks, we might be a lot better off. We need more Michael Sheens and fewer Union Jacks, Alan.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that is a man of real principle. And what he is doing is real socialism. He's using his wealth to help the most vulnerable in the society, helping them get out of a difficult situation they're in just now. But look at what the government does. They do exactly the same thing, but to rich people. When the rich people have difficulties, the government use our money to write off their debts, while our people are still suffering and going further and further into poverty. I take my hat off to Michael Sheen. I've always thought he was a great actor, to be honest. I really like his films, but he has real principles, and just wish that other members of the Labour Party, because Michael Sheen used to be quite a hard-line Labour activist. I don't know whether he still is now. I'd be very surprised if he is. But the other Labour activists have got to look at him and see how it's really done. Your party have deserted you. It's time for you to desert your own party, because they are not the Labour Party anymore. They are the Tory and Red Rosettes. They are making our people suffer. Michael Sheen should not have to put his hand in his pocket to help out his fellow citizens, but he had the courage and the will to do so, and I thank him very much for that.
No, absolutely. We need more of that. I mean, we're all of the left on this show. Here's another one, over and above that. Welcome back, Eva. I'll give you another question, because you didn't quite hear that one. But while this was going on with Michael Sheen's decency and generosity, paying off his neighbour's debt, we had this happening in Westminster again. Is a pro-Israeli Westminster group who were asked how they were funded and who was funding them, and they've just refused. We're not telling us. That's not exactly transparency we have in our governance. They should be forced to tell us. But I think we can all guess who's funding them and why they're being funded.
I'm delighted to see that Wales is really waking up at long, long last. And in terms of Michael Sheen, if you want to see what an amazing speech he makes, there's a couple about his Welsh heritage that are worth watching. And a really impassioned one is when he recites that poem, "Do not go gently into that good night, rage, rage." That's absolutely fantastic, and it would be a way to live your life. And I certainly feel that myself, given that we're heading towards that good night. I think in the context of Israel and transparency, that's just yet another reason why we need to get out of the union. In 2014, we were to make the case for independence, but it's flipped. The worm has turned. The onus is now on those who want to maintain the union to justify why the union should exist. And this absolute arrogance of these politicians refusing to confirm how they're funded means that they do not consider themselves answerable to the electorate, to the people who put where they are and who pay their wages and who expect to see transparent democratic government. So add it to the very long and growing list of reasons to look towards independence as the only practical or reasonable democratic solution for the people of Scotland and Wales. So bring on English independence, that's what I say.
Here, let's do it. Phil, Michael Sheen generosity, and then you see, his openness to do that, and then you see this, they're hiding who's paying them. It absolutely encapsulates everything that's wrong with British society.
It certainly does, and Michael Sheen ought to be applauded. I mean, he was praised by fans for clearing $1 million of debt. This is for 900 people, by digging into his own pockets. And he's 56, right? Welsh actor. He's paid $100,000 to do this, to start up a debt acquisition company to help people struggling with their finances in South Wales. So this actor's his venture was the subject of a new Channel 4 documentary, and Michael Sheen's secret £1 million giveaway. And overall, Michael helped these 900 people in the Port Talbot area who were struggling. That's community, that's what matters. And Michael Sheen is without doubt a Welsh nationalist, and has no doubt played a significant part in the Welsh achieving this very impressive result, even though it's only in a poll. And Eva's bang on. Dylan Thomas says, "Do not go gentle into that good night" by Michael Sheen on YouTube. It's up there with the very best. Go and check it out. Even though an actor, you can know he means it when he talks about Wales. He's passionate about people, and he's passionate about fairness and equality. The pro-Israeli group at Westminster, APPG, the all-party They're a sham, they're a scam, this set-up. They refuse to say who funded them, okay? Well, the answer is declassified, and is exclusive, is published, the full list of British MPs who receive funding from pro-Israel lobbyists. Some 180 of Britain's 650 MPs in the last Parliament accepted funding from pro-Israel lobby groups or individuals during their political career. Declassified revealed this, right? And that includes 130 Conservative MPs, 41 Labour MPs and 3 Liberal Democrats. 3 members of the DUP, 2 independents and Reform's only MP completed the list. I can bet you if you did that survey now, you'd find a few SNP recipients to that now, if you updated that. But the total value of the donations then from the last investigation from pro-Israel groups, individuals and the Israeli state institutions was over £1 million. Between them, the politicians made over 240 paid for trips to Israel at the cost of over £500,000. So that's just an idea of the stuff that's out there that can be traced. What about the stuff that doesn't? What about that thing I keep going back to, revolving doors? What about the payoff afterwards? And what about things like Trump's $100 million donation from the pro-Jewish lobby in America, which ensured the continuation of Netanyahu dictating America's foreign policy? This is all about the money. $100 million buys you a continuation of a disgust of what is happening in Gaza just now. It's absolutely appalling. That's the ramifications of that. This is how serious this is. We're looking at a new Holocaust, an evil that is perpetrated against the people of Palestine. And every one of you that took that money are contributing to that evil and the continuation of it, instead of standing up for what is right.
Indeed. This is a form of APAC in the UK, isn't it, Lloyd?
Yes, it is. But, as I've said on this and on the couple of programmes we did, especially on the Palestine issue, the Israelis entered into what was effectively a military operation to control all areas of threat to them, including the political threat in foreign countries. And they embarked on this 20, 30 years ago in the broader sense than they have in America since the formation of the State of Israel. That they're the most efficient at protecting themselves of all the countries in the world that I can work out, because what they do is they project soft power, that soft power being money. They project that money into the hands of politicians and lobby groups in countries right across the world to maintain the benefit is they're witnessing now for all the money they've spent is the silence, particularly in the West and the Western media, over what is happening on a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour, day-to-day, week-to-week basis in the occupied territories of Palestine, and very specifically in the open-air prison camp, which is Gaza. Yesterday morning, between dawn and midday, over 240 women and children were either killed or injured by Israeli military action. This morning, I just looked at it on Al Jazeera, this morning 190 women and children have been wounded or killed by Israeli military action. Now, was that on the BBC? No. Was that on BBC Scotland Radio? No. Was it on ITV? No. Was it on Sky? No. That is what Israel gets for controlling the politicians in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. That's what Israel gets for controlling the French politicians in their Senate. It's what they get for the control over politicians that they have invested in using American money to quieten down, to crush down any representation of the truth of the behaviour and the actions of the Israeli government and its defence forces. They're ludicrously called defence forces. They've never defended themselves once. All they do is kill women and children. The power of the Israeli lobby, and it's here in Scotland. And if anybody thinks that is wrong, then look up the pictures of Angus Robertson meeting with the deputy Israeli ambassador. Pictures that he tried to hide, but the Israelis, because that's what they do, they saw benefit to them in it. So they made sure that those pictures came into the public domain. The fact that we've had no condemnation whatsoever of the ongoing genocide in Palestine by Scotland's First Minister, Scotland's Deputy First Minister, the leader of the opposition, or the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland. No condemnations whatsoever. All of them wanting to keep their head down because of what? Because they fear the Israeli lobby. The power of it is in the silence it creates. And anyone who is silent, you know by their silence that they are afeared and complicit.
Yeah, that's terrible. And while all this is going on, on the political scene, Alan, more news out this week is that in the latest polling, the Labour Party is actually down to 22%, the Reform 25%, Conservatives 26%. Labour are on the slide, and it doesn't seem as if there's any way back for them because they just keep shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, again, it should be no surprise. I mean, what's the point of voting for someone who pretends to be something else? I mean, Labour got in on lies. Since they got in, they've seen the rise of reform, so they tried to turn into a reform. People don't want that. Their basic supporters don't like the policies, and reform supporters want the real thing. They don't want an imitation. And that's how Labour are falling fast. The Tories are coming up, but the Tories will not have enough support to become a government. So whatever happens at the next Westminster government, it looks probably like a Tory reform coalition. That will be a nightmare for Scotland.
Yep.
We have to make sure we are out of this union before that happens. But we are already seeing legislation getting brought in by Labour of cutting benefits, giving police more powers to arrest people for peaceful demonstrations. They're just, we're turning more and more into a fascist state. Our thin blue line is now turning into a brown shirt line, the way they're treating the police. The police are having to go in and they're going to have, the police are going in and doing things that they should never ever be doing, and they know they should never be doing that, and all because of the way this government are going. But we're turning into a fascist state while we sleep, and people have got to waken up. I don't call people fascists just because it's a word in the dictionary. I call people fascists because I am terrified the way this country is going. It's not a joke. We are really sleepwalking into a fascist state here. If that's what you want, then continue doing exactly what you're doing. Don't go out and vote because you think it's not worthwhile. Because the vote is the only weapon you have to stop fascism coming into this country. Because regardless of what Westminster do just now, one thing they cannot do is stop the people from having their voice through a democratic election. And we must make sure we are out there at every single election. And if you don't have someone to vote for, then spoil your ballot paper. Make it clear that you are not interested in the Westminster Parliament and they do not represent you. Make sure that people know that you are not interested in any of the candidates. Because if you just sit on your hands in your house, you're just being lazy. That is not a protest. A protest is going out and making your voice heard. So please, please, get out at every single election. These 12%, 13%, 23%, 30%, they're ridiculous. We need to have over 90% turnout at every single election to make sure our voices are heard and heard loud and clear.
Yeah. Alan's right, Eva. We're moving very much towards fascist, intolerant state. And there was another one this week where Quakers, who are not exactly known for their radicalism or their violence, certainly they're people of peace. But there was a huge raid down in London, where the Met Police sent in a really heavy-handed approach and arrested. They were so angry, the Quakers, they refused to give the police a cup of tea. That's how upset they were. But when you're getting Quakers arrested, and they're having a meeting about was climate change and the ongoing genocide, and that's what the Met Police come in to break up. Now, my God, if we can't discuss climate change and a genocide, Eva, where are we heading?
Well, I'm going to take issue with something that Alan said there unusually, because we're referring to Labour politicians telling lies. But actually, my old Labour MP, Martin O'Neill, who became Lord O'Neill, of course, eventually. He was, for once in his life, particularly honest when he said in the House of Commons many years ago, I think in the maybe late 1980s, it is the purpose of the Labour Party in Scotland to lower the expectations of the people of Scotland. It's in Hansard, and that was the Labour Party official position then, and it remains their official position now. It's their purpose to lower our expectations, because if the people of Scotland actually understood the potential that our country has, our expectations would quite correctly be sky high, and we would have the self-confidence to attain that self-determining status. However, in terms of fascism, look no further than the disastrous, tragic case of Lucy Connolly, presently serving a prison sentence of a couple of years for a social media post. Not because that should be a deterrent to her, because clearly it is, but she's been sentenced to that term of imprisonment pour encourager les autres, to encourage everybody else who might feel like venting their anger in a social media post. In the days when we talk daily about prison numbers being far too high throughout the United Kingdom, that obviously includes in Scotland, where they're hitting record numbers again. The Scottish and Westminster governments seem to think that they have to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. But while they're locking people up for social media posts, what they're not doing is properly funding the Criminal Legal Aid Defence Bar in both Scotland and England. There are not enough lawyers. And remember Andy Whiteman? The poor had no lawyers. That is where we are heading throughout the United Kingdom, and it's got to stop, because it is the poor who suffer most when law and order becomes the clarion call, the rallying cry of those who govern us, because this is deflection. The government doesn't like free speech. They don't like people demonstrating either outside Holyrood or in London. They don't like demonstrations being publicised. They don't like the public, the electorate, to talk. So what they do is they threaten them with jail, and now and again they jail somebody just to make sure that the rest of us get the message. And unfortunately, in Police Scotland and in the Metropolitan Police, there are some policemen, some police officers who are a bit overzealous at times. And sometimes you find that they arrest you just because they can. Not because they've got the evidence, not because they can make a case against you, but because they're on a power trip. And they know, as well as you do, that they can lift you, lock you up in a cell, and leave you there to stew overnight, and you might get out the next day and find there's no charges preferred against you at all, if you're lucky. That's the kind of country that is being created when we've got politicians who simply ignore the rule of law, and they allow these police officers to behave as if they were the law, as opposed to implementing the law. So if I was one of these Quaker ladies, I'd be seeing my lawyer, and I'd be thinking about a claim for compensation forthwith.
It is. I agree with the law. Only ever came in the beginning was to protect the rich and their chattels. It wasn't for the benefit of the poor people in any society ever. That's just my humble opinion. With greatest respect to our present-day lawyer here, who's sitting beside us, different, of course. Phil, do you think this latest, the opinion polls showing it, and they've been quite consistent about reform, could this be the breaking up of the big two to now to be the three fighting among themselves? Or will this famous quiet 1% start moving to make sure it falls back into line of being just the two?
The quiet 1% will obviously work towards that, but if there's opportunity for power, glory, and money, because they all go hand in hand, particularly the power and the money, then they will go either way. They would happily join reform if they feel they're not getting a fair crack at the whip in the party they're currently in. So I kind of hope they do squabble and fight and they can't resolve this issue, because what the unionists have been very good at is doing what we should be doing, which is uniting and working together against the enemy for a common cause, and for us that would be independence, nothing less. I think it depends who you listen to in terms of the reform, because if you look at GB News, they say that reform pulls ahead of both Labour and Tories as Farage dominates, right, in this poll. But they say they've pulled ahead of both Labour and Conservative to top a national poll alone for the first time ever, and that's from pollsters Find Out Now. You know, I don't know them very well, but apparently they're a data pollster. And when you consider what reform losses, the lead over Labour after infighting over Farage's leadership, the spat between him and Rupert Lowe, this is reported to have translated into a drop in polls, and that comes from BMG research on behalf of the I paper. So this is Reform's recent surge in the polls continues to falter in the wake of bitter infighting. So it depends who you go for your information. But on the Quaker issues, this is people, if you understand the history of the Quakers, the peace-loving Quakers, they have a philosophy that is to be admired. They say the London police arrested 6 people at a meeting, as you said earlier, and everybody's referred to it, climate change in Gaza. These are the difficult topics we should all be talking about. And the police raided this meeting house in London on Thursday and arrested 6 women attending a meeting on this issue. According to the statement from Quakers UK, they say, "No one has been arrested in a Quaker meeting house in living memory," said Paul Parker, a recording clerk for the Quakers in Britain. According to this statement, the aggressive violation of our place of worship and the forceful removal of young people holding a protest group meeting clearly shows what happens when a society criminalises protest. This is what he added to that. And even the Americans were reporting on this. CNN reached out to the London's Metropolitan Police for comment, and the Quakers, which is a nickname for members of the Religious Society of Friends, follow a religious tradition that originally grew from Protestant Christianity in the 17th century. They have a long history of supporting protest movements, and non-violence is one of their core beliefs. Nothing, apparently, is sacred in today's Britain.
No. Can you imagine, Lloyd, if they had the Met Police had gone into a synagogue and arrested 6 Jewish activists talking about anything? Can you imagine the outcry?
Don't be silly. Don't be silly, Roddy. For goodness sake, that's never going to happen. For goodness sake, I mean, good heavens above them, the world would collapse around their ears, chicken like it. The absurdity of this is there's a kind of honesty in what the Metropolitan Police did, because what they did was they said, we don't recognise your place of worship. You know, we don't have to talk about a synagogue. Had 6 people been arrested in Westminster Cathedral, you know, there would have been questions in the House. Had it taken place in any other place, but there's a lack of understanding amongst the law enforcement community of who people actually are. Immediately that you are what they would term a protester, then you very firmly move from the good guy page to the bad guy page, irrespective of who you are. I mean, I've seen enough of this over the years. Remember, you know, the Quaker meeting houses have been used, certainly here in Edinburgh and in London and in Manchester, I know, as a place for people to meet. And the Quakers always reached out to the peace movement and to protest movements as a means by which for them to communicate to people their non-violent approach. Every time I organised a meeting on various issues, which we held in the Friends Meeting House here in Edinburgh, you would have a meeting with them beforehand, and there was no wagging finger, but it was very, very clear that what they expected of you was that your meeting was about non-violent protest, and that it was about respect for the other side. And this was not done in a preachy way, but that was the rules. They allowed us to use their place because that was the rules that you operated under. Now, if the Metropolitan Police are entirely and completely unaware of the background of the Quakers, then, you know, they really need to look at their employment practices. But at the same time as there are screams of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, how is it that the Metropolitan Police think that it's a sensible and approach to invade a friend's meeting house and arrest people who are simply having a discussion about proposed protests? All you're really doing is you're convincing people that, and but then again, it's part of the same strategy that Eva referred to, which is by these actions they scare people away. Now, these are exactly the tactics that have been used by the British in every single situation they've been in across the world when people stand up and go, hold on a minute, we don't go along with that. Well, what we have now in this bizarre world that we're living in, where a Labour Party and its law and order approach is kind of maxing out the Conservative card on this one, is we're in a situation where people of honour and people of understanding and people of care and quality are effectively threatened by the forces of law and order, who are representing the opposite. The forces of law and order in this country at the moment are the allies of the Israeli Defence Forces. They are the allies of that maniac in Syria who used to be in ISIS. Whether they know it or not, what they're being asked to do on a day and daily basis by controlling protest and controlling people's right to dissent, which is, inherently our right, what they're effectively doing is they're putting themselves on the side of wickedness and evil. And if anybody criticises that, then you are the wicked. You are the evil. You are threatening the entire fabric of society. I would make a suggestion. The current way this country is being policed, and I mean Scotland very particularly, but the UK generally, we're wandering into a world where the division between the forces of law and order, or the elements of law and order, are being seen as being entirely opposed to the people. That they're there is to control us, not to protect and serve, which I believe was the motto of the police service. But it's now about control and crush, not protect and serve. It's control and crush, and it's not about violent action. This is about attempting to control people's thinking, threatening people in a manner because they are offended by seeing the massacre of children and women in Gaza, or in their terms, the destruction of the planet because of rampant, mad, crazy capitalism. But what they're actually doing is the government has now decided it's on the side of the bad guys. Instead of learning from these people, we're living in a society now where they would crush any form of dissent whatsoever if it's approved by Keir Starmer. And Keir Starmer, remember him? What a great guy. Head of the Department of Public Prosecutions, locked up Julian Assange. Britain is a strange country at the moment, a very strange country. And the sooner we make our exit from it, the better it will be for our future generations.
Yeah, he locked up Julian Assange, but he didn't lock up Jimmy Savile.
Aye.
There you go. But when it's the arrogance and the pomposity, I mean, there was great, during the Falklands War, I'm no great lover of wars, or Tories or unionism or anything about it, but Lord Carrington, as he became, he resigned on a matter of interest. I mean, he was a man of stature, and there was a lot of men of stature at hand, and he resigned because he'd been sleeping at the wheel. But then you get in this Foreign Secretary, we've got David Lammy, he who believes that men can grow a cervix. I wrote to him and asked him when the baby was coming out. I have not had a reply. I don't know why, but I really would like to know because I might want to go and grow a cervix, David, and I might get pregnant, and then I would like to know where the baby's coming out. Might be quite painful. Anyway, here he is, Alan. Now let's allow just one thing. No matter what side of this the debate you're on what's happening in Ukraine, I think it's fair to say NATO and the West have been defeated. However, David, God bless him,
all of us want to see an enduring, long-lasting peace. And to get that peace, we need Putin to accept a ceasefire without conditions now.
He's trying, by pausing, to sound like a statesman. But He sounds like a fanny. I mean, the losers do not dictate the terms. And why would he listen to this guy of all guys? You will do it and you will do it now. You've won, but we're changing the rules. It's absolute pompous arrogance, Alan.
David Lammy's in for a big shock very shortly. Because what he's doing is he's attacking Russia. Why? Because America told them to attack Russia. Try to make Russia look like the big bad wolf who's trying to blow down our houses by a nuclear holocaust. That's not going to happen. Russia is not our enemy. At the beginning of this war, Russia gave fair warning to the Ukrainian brown shirts that if they do not stop murdering their women and children, they will come in and defend them. And that's exactly what happened. But America insisted on the West hating Russia for that and made Russia the bad ones. But look what's happening now. Who's the enemy of our country? Who's the ones who are trying to ruin our economy? It's the Americans. Donald Trump putting all these tariffs on us. So what we should maybe be doing to Russia is saying to them, you know what? Let's lift all these embargoes against you. Let's enter trade negotiations with you, Russia. Let's get good relationships between Russia and the West. And say at the same time, say to America, see your diplomats, they've been expelled from our country for trying to destroy our economy. And see Trump, we'll deal with him like we deal with any bully in the playground. We'll give him a good kick in the balls. What we do is we don't just put tariffs on American goods. We tax Trump's businesses to the hilt. Every single one of these golf courses we tax. Even if you want to do zonal tax on holes in grass for his golf courses, so that only affects his golf course. That's how you deal with Trump. You hit him in the pocket hard because he's not interested whether America loses money. Because what happens when when the economy falls? All the stocks go down. The people with a lot of money quite like that because although they take a wee hit, at the beginning, they buy up all the shares very, very cheaply. Then the economy comes back again, and they've made billions of pounds out of that, while the rest of us suffer.
Yeah.
So what you've got to do is hit them hard personally. And Trump is open to that. And every single country in this world, Trump has loans in their banks. Call them in. Because Trump's not as rich as what he thinks he is. He's in a lot of debt that makes him look rich. So call on his debt and call his bluff. Because I'll tell you, he'll soon change his mind.
This tariff thing, we're going to go into it in more depth, Eva, but it's affecting the Scottish whisky trade. Most certainly they've put a tariff on that, which is going to be affected. But it's not quite all it seems. It's a kind of boomerang effect you can have when you put these, because tariffs, China has now come back and put 34% tariff on the Americas, and Japan and Korea are joining with China, and the European Union's. But it's just it's like a circular firing squad, isn't it?
That certainly is a global. Last thing the moment, people mentioned for the of life, what a horrible place. What brought home is with the governor of the islands. I think we came to a hunt when he surrendered the islands to the Argentinian forces. All the television news and all the papers reported that he did so decked out in full ceremonial plumage. He dressed up to that was a very British view. When I say that full ceremonial plumage, these are actually the words that the media used because that was part of the government press release. And full ceremonial plumage, like a kitten, but he might wear belly. He was wearing a hat.
Eva, I'm sorry to interrupt you, love. You're breaking up very badly. We can hardly hear you.
Sorry, do you want to go on to somebody else then?
Yeah, I'll come back to you in a second if you can get a bit better signal there. Phil, on this, we know that Trump's put out these tariffs, but we also know that they're actually not true, the tariffs, because and I saw this great meme which I think sums it up. And I should get one for John Swinney and SNP. I should get one for Keir Starmer and British Unionists, and it's this one here. This is a cat. That is a cat. They'll believe anything they're told by the man. But these tariffs, what they're basing on, is actually not true. These figures are about trade deficits, not about tariffs. It's a lie. Basically, his whole premise is a lie.
Yeah, and it's bizarre. This is a long, complicated story. The first point, though, on Lloyd's point about the police, as you know, I was at Tullyallen and served as a Scottish police officer. Big leak, which is the cry of the oyster catcher, which translates from the Gaelic as be wise, be circumspect. I see precious little of this from the Scottish police force these days. But anyway, protectionism. Quotas and tariffs, it's protectionism. Protectionism, sometimes referred to as trade protectionism, is the economic policy of restricting imports from other countries through methods such as tariffs on imported goods, import quotas, and a variety of other regs, okay? There's some positives arguments about it. It shields the producers, businesses and workers of the country, and opponents would say that it reduces free trade, like anti-Keynesian economics. And Britain was the first empire to implement this on a grand scale. The US economic empire, once it took over the mantle of policing the world, then became the prime practitioner. And really, to be honest, America's been practicing protectionism since the Boston Tea Party. You know, and you can understand why, for they have some points. But the form you're talking about, I found a really good one on TFI Post, if you check this out. Why are the economists scratching their heads over the tariff calculations and application used by Trump? Well, the Trump administration's declaration of retaliatory tariffs it's alarmed the economists around the world and economies. A lot of people are going to suffer. Even remote areas are impacted. He justified the tariffs as saying it's a response to years of economic exploitation by foreign nations, adding they were not fully reciprocal, but kind reciprocal tariffs. Nonsense. The newly installed reciprocal tariff programme begins with a baseline tariff set at 10% that increases up to 50%. Contrary to previous framework where tariffs, rates and trade barriers were tied. This administration, the Trump administration, adopted a formula more based on trade deficits. The adjustments reflect a strategic effort, it's a political decision, to reduce the US trade deficit rather than merely being concerned about some other nation's trade policies. So what they've done, the USTR, United States Trade Representative, explained the method in a statement issued it was very recently in a Bloomberg analysis. The computation is done by taking the nation's trade surplus with the US and dividing it by its exports based on 2024 data from the US Census Bureau. And then the resulting percentage isn't cut in half. It's not economic, it's punitive. For instance, China's trade surplus over the US in 2024 was 295 billion. Of total exports to the US were 438 billion. This gave a proportion of 68%, and when this was divided by 2, it yielded a tariff rate of 34%. That 34% tariff was then imposed on China. It's absolutely madness. And you know, there's great comments from Chris Murphy, a US lawyer. Even in the States, they're criticising this because, yeah, okay, it's a cat. It's a duck, no, it's a cat. Everybody believes it's a cat. We know it's very polarised in the United States, 50-50, almost at the last election, has been that way for over 15 years. But now even Trump's party are beginning to question the sense here, because tariffs don't make sense as an economic policy, because these ones are not based on any sound economic policy. So, and if companies, this is something that Chris Murphy talked about, if companies pledge loyalty to Trump, they get a break from tariffs. That's why he's going after every law firm and going after everybody and every influencer in the United States to force support for the continued elitist asset stripping of the country's wealth. The US stock exchange wiped out another $2 trillion. I like what he did in Ukraine, saddened that he was bought by the Jewish lobby, in this case a $100 million donation by Miriam Adelson to allow Netanyahu to continue his US-American foreign policy. But listen to people like Dr. Heather Cox Richardson, worth checking out as she checks what Trump does and critically, and gives them a fair crack at it, but critically deconstructs what these tariffs are doing. It's a disaster.
They're self-defeating, Lloyd, because we noticed this week, Germany has said to the United States why they've got 1,200 tons of German gold in Fort Knox, and they've said we want it back. There's been some debate whether that's actually going to be there when they go to look for it. But the fact that he's attacking his own allies, he's attacking people he wants to support him all the time, and they're turning around and going, no, give us back our gold. It is just a mess.
It is, but are we really surprised? I mean, I think we shouldn't have been surprised, because if you put a maverick businessman in charge of a political organisation or a major state, then it's things are going to get a bit strange. And I think this is the essential problem with Donald Trump, is that he sees running the United States in the same way as he sees running the Trump organisation. And for him, it's all about winning, and winning in whatever means he can, by losing the least amount of money. And it shows very clearly that a country is not a business. An international superpower is not a business. If you try and run it like a business, then you will fail to do an enormous amount of things. Now, what was clear from the tariff guff was, it's a big PR stunt. It's a giant PR stunt, but they haven't really thought about what the possible ramifications were. And one of the things that really made me laugh was when he gave the list of the countries who were receiving tariffs. There was one particular country that just leapt out at me. It's called Norfolk Island. It's in the southern Atlantic, just a couple of 100 miles off the Antarctic coastline. Its entire population are seals and penguins. There are no human beings whatsoever. It exports nothing apart from guano, which is dropped liberally on the ocean as the seagulls fly by. What are these people thinking of? I mean, genuinely. I mean, they can't even see when they've made utter and complete fools of themselves. He also put tariffs on Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is the British dependency in the Indian Ocean, which is the largest American Air Force base outside of the United States. There's nobody else there except American servicemen. It exports nothing but Americans. Imports Americans, exports Americans. I mean, the whole thing's nuts. It really is. But it was the big giveaway. It was his big statement yesterday when he came out with the gold card. Did you see that? A gold card. Anyone can buy one for $5 million. I'm buying the first one because we've got all the good cards. And then he said the tariffs are fantastic. This is the day of economic liberation for the United States. This is the day when we take back our businesses. And in reality, he then went on to say, this is the best time ever to get rich. The stock market's collapsing. And then, as Phil pointed out, recession. Alan pointed it out as well, recession. The rich love a recession because that's when you can make serious money. And and Trump he's just made it plain what the rules are. He's not saying to the vast majority of American people, yeah, it's a great time to get rich. Because it's not, because you're all going to get poor. But see, my pals, we're going to get rich. We're going to get serious rich because we've got loads of money in the bank and we're going to buy up all these things and we're going to pay off all you people. That's what's happening here. This is what happens when a businessman runs a political structure. It doesn't work.
No, absolutely. On this, we come back to you, hopefully, Eva, you're back. But here, this summed it up for me. The Dreamliner, which of course is a Boeing product, and if you look at throughout the world there, stuff comes from Saab in Sweden and Rolls-Royce engines in the UK, all over. Now he's hit tariffs in these, so when they come into the US to make the American plane, he suddenly prices the American plane out of the market. He's not helping his own country, Eva, but this, as I say, is self-inflicting. Oh, is she gone? Was it something I said? Alan, I'll give that to you again now. Eva's disappeared again. Where is she? There she is. Here she is. What is it? You keep popping off here, Eva. Did you see that?
I'm jinxed this week, Roddy. No, I didn't. There.
Well, answer it anyway. No, yeah, I was saying, this is the Dreamliner, the Boeing Dreamliner, built in America, but so much of it comes from overseas, countries that are now tariffed heavily. You know, there's Saab, Sweden, for the cargo access doors, the Rolls-Royce engines, the batteries are coming from Japan. You know, wings are coming from, was it Portugal or Lisbon or something like that? But all these countries are now tariffed, so it means that when these goods come into America, he's now just made the American Boeings too expensive for the rest of the world. They'll go and buy Airbuses or something else. It's insanity.
I think it's why we may not publicise the fact that Donald Trump's mum was Scottish, because that we. Yeah, no, it's just pathetic. But you know, Lloyd, as usual, spot on. It's about creating a recession and making money for his pals. And
but having you're definitely jinxed, Steve. Where you're like Norman Collier, remember the comedian. See, this is what happens when you go away in these wee trips, these nice places with Matt. Anyway, the clock has beaten us. We've overshot the runway, and of course there's stuff I haven't covered, folks. I wanted to cover the thing about Marine Le Pen, not because I support her politics, absolutely I do not, but I'm getting worried, and we talked about it a few weeks ago about Georgescu in Romania. Again, I don't agree with his politics, but these people have been prevented by the WEF globalists from even standing, and it's getting quite worrying. Quakers getting arrested, people getting arrested for tying a ribbon on a lamppost, people saying that, you know, stop this genocide, and you're getting arrested. We need to have a proper society, and we're not going to get that inside the union. We need to get out the union, and we've all got to work towards that. And we'll be back next week to give you more ways to work towards that. Until we do, you and yours take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.